I'm so happy to be here. Oh my goodness. I must have something really good to say because Satan has been blocking my flow tonight. Welcome to tonight's episode, part 3, bam, of Single with Purpose, living in your purpose, embracing your celibacy as a single individual. And I pray that you will be able to have some type of positive experience from this. I am the author of the book, Single with Purpose, The Single Sister's Tool for Living Single and Celibate and Loving It. And today is part 3. And so I'm just going to do a little recap. In part 1, we talked about, well, wait, before I do the recap, let me make a little bit of money. The way that you can reach me is on my blog, www.singlewithpurpose.com. I'm also on Facebook, so friend me on Facebook, www.singlewithpurpose.com/Facebook. And then you can also follow me on Twitter at SNGL with Purpose. How you can help this Single with Purpose effort is by buying the book. Purchase the book. It's $12, and the testimonials that I've gotten from people who have experienced the Single with Purpose mission are things like, I didn't realize that it was as easy as it is to embrace my walk, to do things that are pleasing to God. And so I pray that if you invest this $12 in this book and you are really serious about your walk, that this book will be one of the tools that you can add to your arsenal to overcome your temptation. So, a couple things. My goals in having the book and having the workshops are threefold. First off, it is to motivate your celibacy efforts. If I can do it, you can do it. Anyone with a sex drive can be celibate and live a life that is pleasing to God if they so choose to do it. So that's goal number 1. Goal number 2 is to inspire you to find your purpose. And like I said, I didn't find my purpose until I was 43, and I'm 44 now. How about that? And number 3 is to encourage your spiritual walk, to go a little bit deeper, to stop playing, because tomorrow is promised to no one. Okay, so let's do a quick review. Part 1 was really about introducing you to the Single with Purpose effort. And I'm just going to make a slight adjustment because we can't cut off my hair now. My hair is looking kind of cute tonight. All right, so I shared with you the inspiration as to how the book came to be, the temptation that I experienced, and the PRO method, which was a method that I put into place to overcome your sexual temptation. And you know what I found since starting to really talk about the PRO method, and I'm not going to even tell you what the PRO method is because you're going to need to buy the book, or you can also review the previous segments, parts 1 and part 2, because this is part 3. So the PRO method can be used in any environment. Anytime you are feeling some issues, you're feeling some kind of way, people are getting on your nerves, you're irritable, you're premenstrual, you're man-menstrual, whatever the case may be, the PRO method, it is the bomb. And it's biblically based. Okay, so we talked about the temptation, the PRO method. We also talked about who the book was for. And we delved a little bit into your purpose. Part 2 was about TAP. Talents plus abilities equal purpose. And that was really about the things that you can do to kind of walk through finding where your purpose is and how you can really live and tap into your potential. We talked about tap killers, the things that come into play that snuff out your purpose and make you feel bad about who you are, and we talked about who is behind that, ultimately Satan. And we talked about the solution. So tonight, the wrap-up, we're going to talk about, hopefully we'll have time to cover everything, but we're going to talk primarily about who benefits from your talents and why you should use your talents. And then we're going to go into who you are. Who are you? And we're going to go into who is your significant other. So I'm going to challenge you. I want to ask you to talk to me online and tell me, who are you? Are you single and celibate, or are you living a foul life right now? Because I can tell you I was living pretty raggedy, and I was doing me, Pam Hempstead, for quite some time. And it wasn't until I had a brush with death that I realized I was taking advantage of my salvation and taking it for granted. So don't allow a brush with death to be your wake-up call. Let this be your wake-up call. But tell me who you are. Are you working on being celibate? Are you challenged? Are you experiencing some hiccups? Where are you with it? Type. Get to typing. All right. So let's talk about why sharing your purpose is so beneficial. One, because we're called to share our purpose. If you think about Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30, Jesus talks about the parable of the talents. And while that speaks specifically in that particular instance to money, because then talents were money, it can also speak to your purpose and your ability. And in that particular parable, it talks about three people. See, that's why I love three. The master gave three people a varying amount of talents according to their abilities. One person received 5 talents, one person received 2 talents, and one person received 1 talent. The person who received 5 talents got to work immediately, and he doubled his lot. So he had a double on his ROI. The second person doubled his. So he, instead of coming back with 2 talents, he had 4 talents. The person who had 1 talent buried his in the sand and did absolutely nothing. And so when the master came back to collect on the dividends, that's when the rubber hit the road. So the person who doubled his from 5 to 10 received a wonderful everlasting reward. The person who doubled his from 2 to 4 received a wonderful everlasting reward. And the person who did nothing but buried his in the sand received an everlasting life in hell. So that has some wonderful applications for us. It is our duty to live in our purpose, because as we live in our purpose, we are inspiring other people. Who are we inspiring? Family, friends, and strangers. Let me tell you how that works. When you are who God wants you to be, you allow your light to shine. When you are a child of God and you are smiling and you are going through trials and tribulations and you're doing it with a smile, you are the salt of the earth, you are standing out and being a different person from who the world suggests you should be when you go through trials and tribulations. When people see you go through those issues with a smile on your face, they want to know why. How can you smile when you're going through what you're going through? Because I can relate to what you're going through, but I can't understand why you're smiling. And when you can share the fact that you have the Lord in your life, and that's why you can smile through it, because He's guiding you through these issues, and He's with you every step of the way, that is you living in your purpose, doing what you're supposed to, being obedient, and sharing the Word of God with others. So that's why it's so incredibly important. Okay, so we're going to move to who are you? Now, I am speaking primarily to single Christian women. That is who the book was aimed at, Single with Purpose, the Single Sister's Tool for Living Single and Celibate and Loving It. But I also recognize that my audience has increased to married women and men, as well as single men, who all are striving to live a life that is pleasing to God. So wherever you are, get in where you can fit in. Okay, when we think about who you are, there's a segment, there's a chapter in the book. The book is split up into 3 different areas: healthy living, dating, and then waiting patiently. So who you are fits in under waiting patiently. And I did a study on the book of Ruth where, and this was so providential, because I didn't say, let me study the book of Ruth and figure out how I'm going to tie this into what I'm writing about. I just started studying the book of Ruth, so it was providential. And thank you, Julian. And I just realized that the book of Ruth has an awesome dating / love story. And the Bible doesn't have a lot of stories on dating, because back then parents worked it all out. They shared, and they gave cows and horses and camels in exchange for children to marry, and kept everything all in the bloodline to keep it all pure. And so the parents worked it all out, and the children just went where they went. Now, when I was in my 20s, I had absolutely no desire in having my mother or my father pick my mate. But now that I'm single in my 40s, I recognize the wisdom that parents have and what they would be thinking of when they were looking for mates for their children. So That's just a little side note. That's free. All right, so as I was going through the book of Ruth, I realized that there were some principles that we could follow as single women, and there are some principles that men can follow that are very significant when we think about who our significant others are. So, who are you, the single Christian woman? I had 14 characteristics that we as women should really strive hard to embrace. And I'm just going to share 3 of them because time is moving quickly. The first one that I have to share with you tonight is she is open to the truth of God. And how that looks for us today. Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't put my phone on vibrate. My bad. Okay, I'm just going to ignore it because if I bend over to get it, maybe I've got skills and I can grab it with my phone. So anyway, she's open to the truth of God. If you think about the people that you interact with on a regular basis, what kind of impression do you have when you interact with them? When you're talking to them, do you get the impression that they're godly people based on their conversation, based on the way they dress, based on the way they react to these things, to various things that may happen? Sorry, okay. I might need to pray before the show is over tonight. All of the things that make up who we are tell the story of whether we are repping Team Jesus or Team Satan. So when you think about being open to the truth of God, that means being obedient. That means doing His will. Couple things for you to keep in mind. Stay in your word. It is so important for you to be in the Bible on a daily basis and know what God expects from you as far as how you should worship Him, as far as how you should carry yourself, as far as how you should treat other people. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know I'm having issues. Anyway, stay in your word and strive for consistency, because no matter what is going on with you, I know. See, it's my PC. I was trying to do the PC thing, and then I didn't have a mic, and so now I'm with Mac, and I've got a Mac, but the PC is underneath the Mac, and the PC is probably mad, and that's why. Yeah, so anyway, thanks for staying with me through this. Okay, so our walk should be evident. That's point 1. We should strive for consistency. That's point 2. And you should stay in your word. That's point 3. Under being open to the truth of God. So that's 1. Number 2, she is polite. Now, how about, have you ever gone to, let's see, DMV and gone up to the counter and the woman was polite and it just blew you away, because usually you expect them to be rude? Well, that's what we need to be as women of God, as men of God. We need to be polite, because you get more with sugar than vinegar. So I always try to, when I am coming into a situation, my goal is always to leave it better off than when I arrived. That's my number 1 goal. Whether it is a conversation with someone that I know or a conversation with someone that I don't know. That's my goal. Sweeten your words and leave the situation better than it was when you arrived. And the third one is be angry and don't sin. That's in the book of Ephesians. I can't give you chapter and verse right now, but you can be angry, just don't sin with it. All right, number 3, she is submissive. Yes, submissive. The woman of God is submissive. And one of the things that I would ask you to consider if you are resistant to submissiveness is maybe you have the wrong person, and that makes submission such a hard concept to swallow. If we think about what the Word of God says, it is pretty blunt as far as our role as women and as far as the man's role. And so if you have a godly man in your life, submission will not be an issue at all. Think of it as yielding pleasantly. You're not a doormat. You are not to be over him. You are right next to him as a helpmeet. And just really consider who you allow into your life. So the 3 areas for you to consider, 3 areas would be being open to the truth of God, being polite, and being submissive. Julian likes that part. All right. Hey. Okay, so who is your significant other? The biggest part that I got out of the book of Ruth was what the perfect man looks like. I call it the Boaz factor. So I was able to extrapolate 10 godly characteristics of the perfect man as evidenced in the book of Ruth. And I'm going to give you the top three, again, because of time. But the first point is he is a man of good standing and character. So he's got a reputation for being a good person. He is got good morals. He's someone that's not janky or shady. How about that? Number two, how he treats his mother and his sisters, if he has them, will be a strong indication as to how he's going to treat you. And if he is raggedy to his mother, if he's disrespectful to his sisters, then you can believe that he's going to come around and be that way to you. He may not be that way to you during the honeymoon phase when you're all excited to talk to each other and, no, you hang up first, no, you hang up first. Okay, once you get past that, that's when you'll see the real him. The third part is if he grew up with his father in his life, then you'll be able to really reap the benefits of that. If he did not, there are going to be some shortcomings that are overcomable. Yes, I just made that word up. But it's just something that you need to be mindful of. Because if he did not grow up with his father in his home, he may not necessarily know how to lead. And that's cool because he can learn if he hasn't already, but just be mindful of those things. Point number two, he has a relationship with God and he knows God. That will determine how he responds in adversity or any issues that may arise. And it affects his present and his future. And it's going to affect yours if you allow him into your life. And I talk about that in the book. I compare dating a godly man versus dating a man who doesn't necessarily see the benefit of having God in his life. Then the third part is who he serves will show in his actions. And he will know how to prioritize if he serves God. So that's number two. Number three, he maintains his purity and hers. That's very significant. Okay, now check this out. If you're in a relationship with a very good man and maybe you guys have slipped up, it's okay. You can start today. You can straighten up and fly right. So don't feel like just because you've already given up the goods that you can't hold back a little bit. Now it's time for you to make some major changes. Okay, so you've sampled the goods. All right, fine. Now it's time to serve the Lord and no longer serve Team Satan. So you've got to give it up. It's time to shut it down, clamp. And wait for that ring. If you want it, put a ring on it. Okay, so that's the significant piece of that. You, as the woman, set the standard. Sorry, guys, but women are in control as far as that's concerned. If you want the cookie, you got to put a ring on it. Ladies, keep the cookie in the cookie jar. If you keep the cookie in the cookie jar, you will ultimately get what you want, which is marriage. And if you don't want marriage, then don't want to give the cookie away. All right. Recognize your limitations. If you know that you have a high sex drive, as I do, then don't put yourself into positions where you might slip up and fall on it, okay? All I'm saying is don't find yourself alone at home with him watching a movie all spooning and curled up because you know what that's going to lead to. So just keep those things in mind. Recognize your limitations. It's never too late to start and do right. And you set the standard. You let him know this is what we've got to do. And if he's a good man, he's going to stick around and he's going to do the right thing.